Hello and welcome to this wonderful, dark, rainy afternoon in Seattle. It's been snowing on and off as well. All good fun. So I am going to be sharing a little bit of fun stuff with you here today. So you might have picked up on the Storytelling for Action playbook that we have. Released it towards the end of last year, and it's got a bunch of guidance and help to put together business stories. It's actually born out of the workshopping that we do as a part of our strategic narrative work. And the frameworks that are included in the book are frameworks that we use in those workshops. So we use those frameworks to gather all the pieces that we need to tell a story or to put together a strategic narrative. And when I got into the business storytelling stuff over a decade ago, one of the things that was really missing that I just couldn't seem to find was some really nice, simple frameworks, but also kind of processes that would lead you through the necessary steps to put together business stories. When I went looking for those frameworks, or for any frameworks, I came across all sorts of tips and advice around Hollywood and the hero's journey, but business, there was a big gap there. There was help out there for putting together presentations and for let's say, to train of thought, putting together presentations and personal branding, right? Because that's important. Personal branding, having a persona that you embody, that you have a consistency online, and having that rooted in your story, I should say online and in person, having that rooted in your story can be really powerful. So there's advice out there that helps with that, but there was not really a useful tool when it came to putting together content, putting together advertising campaigns, putting together marketing campaigns, putting together product messaging, right? These are all areas where we can do a lot, right? Take product messaging, for example. With product messaging, we may well have a positioning and messaging framework. We may well put together a value proposition, right? And these are all really useful, important parts of the puzzle, but they're not stories, right? They're not storytelling, and they're not story making. And as you start to kind of pick apart all these different pieces, and you start to look at, like, how do we put together, for example, a strategic narrative that ties all of this stuff together, there wasn't anything out there that really helped with that process. And I was responsible at the time for delivering this, sort of storytelling as a service internally at Microsoft at the time. And when I formed Go Narrative, one of the things I wanted to do was put together some really pragmatic, practical, simple ways of doing all this stuff. And doing workshops and coaching, developing these frameworks as I went along. And I thought to myself, why not package this stuff up, right? Why not put these things together? And by doing so, you can take it, right? And you can apply it yourself. And in some cases, it'll be like, Matthew, we need your help doing it. And that's fine. But if you can do it on your own, more power to you, right? And we all know what it's like, living and spending time online nowadays. We're all looking for tips. We're all looking at those YouTube videos for help, and we're all always looking for articles and insights that we can apply. We don't necessarily always want to pay for those things, right? And if we can do that on our own, great, right? The YouTube video example of fixing something in your home, if you can do it yourself and you've got the time, great, but sometimes we don't have that time. And it's, in that case, it's like making the investment in a plumber or in an architect, in a builder, whatever it happens to be, can make sense, right? I for one wouldn't want to start tearing down drywall and putting up new walls and things like that. I've got some friends who seem to just take it in their stride. So you might be that way with storytelling. You might be here and thinking, I want to do this on my own. And again, more power to you. And of course, we do help, and it shouldn't be a surprise, right? And there is the playbook to help with it. So the playbook, actually, I was playing with this. If this is a green screen, I thought this was kind of funny. It's like magic, right? So this is the actual playbook itself. You can get this on Amazon. It's available as a print book because you can check out our blogs and you can get all that insights online, right? But I wanted to give you a tangible paper-based thing that you could actually sit down and sketch and work on. So what I was going to show you today is one of the first parts of the book. So if I go ahead and kind of just give you a sense for, this is the playbook, right? So let me share my screen here. So this is the first play. You can actually get this first play from our website in exchange for your email. And yes, we will send you some emails and tips and tricks. And as per our data policy, we do not sell your data. We have no interest in selling your data whatsoever. We make our money from our services, not from selling up your data. So that exchange will get you what I'm going to show you really quickly here, and then we'll dig in and actually show you how to use it. So here you can see the beginning of the book here with the various elements, and this is the first play. So desire, difficulty, denouement. This is one of our approaches, one of our frameworks, and this is a nice, simple way of thinking about a story, right? And the components are your audience or the character in your story wants something, right? So what is that desire? And of course, life would be nice if we didn't have any challenges, but as we know, we do, and that's the difficulty, which is what stands in our way of getting to this desire that we want. And then denouement is a French word which means untangling of the knot. Now this is really, really important point. First of all, you can guess why I wanted to do 3Ds, because it's kind of fun, right? 3D story, looking at your story from all the different perspectives. But there's something else, and that is, if you look at, for example, Paul Smith's book, Lead with a Story, he's got this framework: context, action, results. And I like that, actually. I like cars, so there's definitely a fit with helping me remember that. But if you look at those pieces, there's something that was missing for me: context, action, results. So context, what is the context of the story? What is the environment of your customer, your audience, whoever it happens to be in the story? If there's some value in that, but you can go into too much context. And if you go into too much context, you can lose people. Action, what action is taken? Okay, that's not too shabby. And results, yeah, what results do they get out of it? Not too shabby again. However, what's the problem with these? Well, action and results, those are what I would characterize as being component of the denouement when it comes to our framework of desire, difficulty denouement. And that's because the untangling, yes, there's action in there. Yes, there's results in there, but there's also the process, there's the approach, right? I remember when I used to work way back in the day at in Microsoft in Dynamics AX, and we would look at, for example, take a company like Carrefour and a big French shopping chain doing a lot of really interesting stuff in retail, and their solution to do their interesting stuff wasn't just the product we were selling, right? At the time, I remember there was the idea of being able to kind of drive to a point where you could pick up your shopping, having ordered it online. There was things you would scan and so on. So those elements, those scanners, right? Even the configuration of your parking lot would be a part of your denouement, part of your solution, right? And if you think about your own personal life, if you think about if you've got a beard like me, what's my solution for this? It's not any one piece. It's not my electric razor. It's not my wet razor. It's not the shaving oil I use, right? It's all of those things together. And so that's what I wanted to do with this denouement thing, right? Is to kind of put all those together. So desire, difficulty, denouement. So you can get this from gonarrative.com, but I wanted to show you what happens as you kind of start to dig down into this a bit more. So each one of these elements, or each one of these plays, in fact, I should characterize the fact that desire, difficulty, and denouement are each a play, right? So the desire play is this first one that we get to, and there's 6 steps. So each one of these plays has got 6 steps to keep it nice and consistent. There's value and power and repetition and consistency. So each one of our plays has got these 6 steps, and they're all beautifully illustrated by Justin, who did a wonderful job of the illustrations here in our each of our plays. And then for each one of those plays, there is then the moves, these potential moves that you could make. And so if you look at what these are, right? So the first one here, which says, do they have a sense of purpose, a calling, a mission? What is it, right? And we've got some tips. We've got some thought starters for you, right? Because you're going to write your own down, and that's on the next page, right? But I don't know about you. Even if I know a subject really well, if you give me a blank page, there's like this kind of little freak out that happens. It's like, what is it? Like, do they have a sense of purpose, a calling, a mission? Who am I thinking of? What could that possibly be? Mental roadblock. I think it's probably because of my ADHD, but you might identify that with that as well. And so I wanted to make sure that you had all of the help you needed. And so you've got that. So every single one of these plays before you get to the worksheet element has these tips, has these recommendations for you. So in this case, do they have a sense of purpose, a calling, a mission? What is it? Here we've got some ideas. So helping others succeed. Think about your audience. Maybe they're a customer, right? So in your audience, if their desire is helping other people succeed, right? That's actually one of my desires as a consultant and the CEO of a boutique marketing agency, is I want to help you succeed, right? I want to help you tap into this thing called storytelling and get the most out of it. So my desire in that case could well be characterized by this. Another couple, just kind of pick a couple random ones, to be trustworthy and authentic. Okay. You might think, well, helping others succeed and being trustworthy, I want to do both these things, or my audience wants to do both these things, or my customers, both of these things are important for my customers, and that's okay. These aren't meant to be prescriptive, they're meant to be thought starters. The same thing goes for the fact that there's going to be a bunch of stuff that's not on this list. How many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on this list happens to be. Some of the other ones, let's see, number 6 has something change in their life, business, or world that triggered the desire. So social media and self-image, and then two others. You've got 3 there. So each one of these could be the answer you're looking for, but it doesn't have to be. So out of that list of 6, take that. Have a think about it, right? Is there something else that's not on this list that is important for my audience, right? If you're telling a story about yourself, it would be you, right? That would be the desire of you as the character in the story that you're telling. If you were, for example, me, and you were casting your mind back 10 years ago, as I talked about just a minute ago, that I had a sense of purpose, and that was to help my organization get better at storytelling, right? And in so doing, that might look like helping others succeed and helping others increase their skill set, helping them learn storytelling. There's a bunch of different ways that we could characterize that, right? And so each one of these 6 moves is a way for you to think through what the desire could be, okay? It's okay if you look at the first one and you say, you know what, Matthew, do they have a sense of purpose? Yeah, it's not kind of really relevant to how I'm thinking about telling this story. This particular story, that's not really something that I'm interested in. That's fine. But you have some other elements you can tap into, right? So the next one, is there an explicit pain or an issue they're trying to get away from or get around? This is different to difficulty. This is about a desire to move away, pull your hand out of the burning fire, right? And the difficulty would be if somebody's holding your hand in that fire, right? Pulling it out is going to be difficult. The third one here, is there a promised land they seek? Where do they want to be, right? Are they trying to get somewhere or do something? An example here could be when you think about software as a service and the shift from on-premises software or infrastructure or whatever it happens to be to a cloud-based implementation, is that promised land is, I have this infinitely scalable way of delivering our service because I no longer have to have all the software and the technology on site, on servers in my company. I'm working with an Amazon or a Microsoft or a Google or an IBM to do that, right? And I am effective, I'm efficient, I'm kicking button, taking names. So that could be what you're looking at there. So I'm not going to go into every single one of these, but what I did want to show you was how this then starts to come together, right? So pull that over there, go ahead and drop this in. So this is this is my iPad. So as you're sitting down to think through this stuff, I would recommend sketching out your ideas. So do they have a sense of purpose? Let's pick somebody. Let's pick an audience. Do we have any? If there's any suggestions in the chat, I will take one. I think we can't do communication back to LinkedIn, or is it the other way around? So if you do have a suggestion, go ahead and throw that in. But let's see. Think of a backup if we don't have anyone come up with an idea. Okay, so how about this one? We are talking about a CIO who is implementing a new solution or system within their company. Think about that car, for example, right? And it's going to involve a Internet of Things angle, right? There's going to be devices, they need to be connected. In the car, for example, it was like maybe hand scanners. There could be sensors involved that are doing things automatically. But we'll take that example. So let's look through each one of these 6 elements of desire and see kind of what pops up for us. Do they have a sense of purpose, a calling, a mission? Maybe this CIO is working in this industry, and let's go ahead and stick to retail to keep it simple. And they have a mission which is, let's say, and this would be a bit different to purpose or why. This isn't going to be something deep in their heart, but a mission could be innovating in retail. Maybe that's their jam. Maybe that's something that really kind of gets them up in the morning, gets them excited. Is there an explicit pain or issue that they're trying to get away from or around? So let's see, what could be, maybe in this case, maybe there's a lack of trust. Maybe implementing this new technology, maybe not all the stakeholders are confident that this is something that the company should be doing. So maybe there's a lot of skepticism in the organization. So that could be something. I'll put IoT. No, it's legit. Be scared for IoT. I remember we did an IoT project for a client a couple of years ago, and I remember chatting with one of the guys on the team, and he was saying, one of the things with IoT is you have to pass the grandmother test. It has to work as if your grandmother was trying to use it as a backup, right? So we were talking about kind of light switches and home automation. So yeah, you need the lights. The light switch should just work like a light switch. It shouldn't be fancy, shouldn't be complicated. And so that's because people, we want to make it work for everybody. In this case of skepticism, there might be a lot of concern within the organization about going down this route. So that could be a valid desire that they need to navigate around. It could also be, if it's not so much an explicit pain that they're trying to move away from, this might be something that could potentially head off to difficulty, right? So that's always something worth considering when it comes to that one. Is there a promised land that they seek? Is there a promised land that they seek? What might that be? Where do they want to be in 1, 2, 5, 10 years? Maybe they want to retire and they want to go out on a high note, or maybe they want to be seen as an innovator so that they can kind of hop from one organization to another, right? Once you get up to that C-suite level, being able to then move into other organizations and bring all of that capability that you have is something that is organizations are often looking for. And so our audience in this case may want to be seen as an innovator. Are there regulations or policies to which they need to adhere? Are those new or old? So what are we doing here? What are we talking about here? Well, what we're talking about here is, remember the Paul Smith context action results I mentioned? This is all contributing to that idea of context, right? But in this case, we're looking at it from a desire perspective, from a what is motivating folks. And in this case, it might be maybe there's an ISO standard. I think that's a little bit too. Yeah. Maybe there's an ISO, whatever that they want to make sure that they stick to, so that their solution can be scalable and they can really build that reputation. Is the desire triggered by something else? What is it, and how is it fermenting the desire? Maybe it's competitive. Maybe it's compete. Has something changed in their life, business, or world that's triggered the desire? Was it their idea? Maybe there's a mandate. So what are we going to do with this stuff? So I'm not going to go today. I'm going to stick to this one. And I think we'll probably pop back online tomorrow at some point and talk about difficulty. But we've got something here, right? We've got, if we go and do a kind of a recap of what we were talking about. So innovation in retail, some skepticism in the organization around IoT, want to be seen as an innovator, and they want to adhere to the standards of the space that they're in. IoT was the example that we're using here. And they've got to do this because the competition is either doing a really good job or has made some moves into that space that we know that if our audience doesn't move in that direction, they are going to fall behind. And there maybe was a mandate that came along with this. So what we've got here is we've got all of the pieces that we need to actually start to tell the story, right? And when you have all the elements of desire, when you have the elements of difficulty, let me pull this chappy up again. I can show you the difficulty one, right? That's the next play that we come to, and it has its own moves and it has its own worksheet, right? But we can go even further, and I'm going to kind of speed through this just to kind of give you a sense of where this goes. So then we've got the denouement, where we talked about what is the untangling of that knot, not just the solution, not just the results, not just the process, not just the outcomes, not just how they tackled it, all of those things, right? And that's in denouement. I'm going to move through this one, give you kind of just a glimpse. This is about the emotions. We actually put this together during COVID to make sure that the stories we were telling or helping our clients tell resonated in an empathetic way. But as we go down through this, we've got the other elements as well, got transformation, but I wanted to zoom all the way down into putting your story to work. So in this case, what this is taking all of those elements that you gather through other parts of the playbook, and it's putting them together, right? So in this case, to give you an example, establishing credibility and stating the logic. This is a way of opening up the story, right? And that could be, if we're talking about this IoT and retail, it could be a statement along the lines of, we're passionate about retail and where these amazing devices are taking customer experiences, but we recognize the challenges that exist with making these types of investments and dealing with these types of standards, right? Some of the stuff that we were touching on in the desire, and the opportunity is fantastic, but difficulty, right? So talk about the challenges involved in getting there. Now, of course, we didn't go through that today. We went through the desire, but I'll go through this sequentially. And then we've got the denouement that you discovered, right, as you're putting together your story. So that could be, but if you take this approach, do this thing, leverage this, include our product, right, then you are heading in the direction of solving for the challenge that your audience has. But what we really want, this is where all those little notes that we had, right, start to come into play. But what we really want is what you really want is you want to innovate, right? You want to innovate in a way that appeases the skeptics in your organization, has you be seen as an innovator, and make sure that you're sticking to the standards you need to stick to so that you can compete effectively. And whether it was a mandate to move in this direction with these devices and this IoT concept, or you chose to do it, you are going to have your hands on the steering wheel. And therefore, then we revisit the denouement. You're able to get to the outcome and the results elements of denouement, and then that's his story. Now at the end here we've got the hook, right? So the reason why we put that at the end is so that you've gone through each of those steps and you're confident and you've put it all together before you put the hook together. So I wanted to show you this putting your story to work element, because I like to connect the dots between the desire that we were just working on and how you're then going to put that into place. So if we go all the way back up to the very beginning, I can make a little bit of a commentary here on these sections, right? So we talked about the desire play. I think if I've got time, I'm going to hop on tomorrow and share some difficulty concepts, right? So pay attention for that. And we talked about the denouement. We also talked about the putting your story to work, right? But this, we did touch briefly on the meat method, all about bringing those emotions and being empathetic with your storytelling. But there's this big one here in the middle, the trips storytelling. So this is all about the big story, the big picture, right? This is really, really useful when you're working to put your strategic narrative together, because it gives you the elements that you can dig into that you need to tell an effective big story, right? Transformation, reasons to believe, innovation, problems, and stories. So the transformation that the market's experiencing, the reasons to believe from a head, data and trends, and a heart, emotions perspective, the innovation that you have that helps your audience or any customers navigate that, the problems folks have getting going on the road, anything that crops up along the way, and the problem with not dealing with the challenges as well, I might add. And then there's stories for each one of those. So there's stories about the transformation, about the first people that came to market, the first innovators, maybe they're at your company, right? There's the reasons to believe. There's stories about what are those trends? If you look at any trend, you look at any data, there's going to be examples of both positive and negative, right? So what are those stories? Put those together. Actually, on LinkedIn today, I did a post about that very thing, about places to look, right? Trends and customer feedback and customer satisfaction scores. Anywhere you've got data, you can tell a story. And data and storytelling go hand in hand. Story is nothing without data, and data is nothing if it doesn't tell a story. So there's stories across all of this. Stories for you might be your founder or why you invented this thing. And then the stories for the problems, case studies are a really great place to put your head when it comes to the stories to tell about problems and showing how your audience, your customers have overcome those. And so that gives you kind of a sense of the sort of the 50,000 foot view of the playbook and how that desire element that we were talking about today fits into that. And just seeing as we're talking about what else is in the playbook, at the end, the practice, after that putting a story to work, there's some very practical elements. I mentioned case studies, so that's their presentations, short form content, all frameworks and stepping stones for you to go through that have that similar worksheet format, so that you can work to put together the presentation so that it's story driven. Make sure your case studies are the same, and even short form content like ads as well. And there's a fun example in the ad section. So you can go ahead and grab the first play, the whole of the 3D one, I think. Is it? Or is it just the desire? You can grab the first play from our website in exchange for your email. We've got some other great stuff that we'll send you as well. And that's something you can dig straight into, right? So go ahead, download that play, start playing with it. And then of course, the playbook itself is available on Amazon. So quick recap. We've talked about the elements of the story as they relate to your audience, that your audience wants something, desire, they there's things that stand in the way, the difficulty, and then how do they untangle that knot, which is the you see the green screen there, can't you? How do they untangle that knot? That's the fancy French word denouement, and what it means. So, and then we've got within the plays, we've got the moves, right? So suggestions on what you can do, and then we've got the opportunity for you to then fill in those moves in the worksheet sections as well. So when I put this book together, I wanted to make it really practical. There's a lot of wonderful books on storytelling out there. This is intended to add to that overall body of work by giving you something very practical that you can sit down with. I don't know about you. I am also very fond of writing things down. I bullet journal. It's not as fancy as you'll see some of the folks on Instagram and so on doing their bullet journaling. It's pretty much just black and white, red and blue for me. But I like getting away from the computer. I like sitting down and actually just having that tactile aspect. You get some of that from like the iPad thing that we were doing as well. There's something about being away from the computer, sitting on a park bench, sitting at on your sofa, and you can do that with a playbook as well. It's designed to be offline, give you a break from the screens, and so go ahead and download that first one, get stuck in, and if you like it, then get the book so you can do it offline. And then the other thing that I would be remiss if I didn't mention is this little chappy up here, and that is our latest, greatest. I'm so excited for the story types. So excited. Business story types. You may have heard of things like the 7 types of story when it comes to entertainment storytelling, but there wasn't one for business, and so I have put together that so that you can use I can pull this up. Actually, just going to give you a quick sneak peek at what it looks like. So you can see here, these are the 7 types of business story: the challenge, the pivot, the catalyst, innovation, improving experiences, changing perception, and growth mindset. So our assessment, which you can get to from our website or from this link here, that is going to give you your story type. If you fill that out and then book some time, I'll actually spend some time with you going through your dominant and your supporting story type, and show you your unique story fingerprint. And all of that is the first step, and what can then become an engagement. But at the very least, take the assessment, get the results. We will provide you with 7 days of tips on applying your story type. But what is it? What is the story type? It's like with all this stuff, it's meant to make your life easier. If you take your story type, like the catalyst, for example, and use it as a lens and use it as a filter. So filter out the stories that don't align to catalyst, for example, and then focus in on the stories that do and on the idea of the catalyst. You don't have to use the word catalyst explicitly, but in so doing, you can then open your eyes and ears, look to your customers, look to your organization, look to your partners, and find stories, the filter, that are aligned to your story type, and tell them, right? You don't need to even think about how do I tell a story if you're hunting for those stories and then recounting them, okay? And then when you want to go deeper, right, obviously there's like the playbook that you can use to then sketch out your ideas and flesh it all out and start to put it together. But at the very least, if you know your story type, you can use that to immediately start being more consistent and clear in the stories that you tell, and it will rapidly speed that whole process up. And so I'm super excited. And you'll get me So as principal consultant for Go Narrative, if you book that time, I will actually spend some time with you. We'll spend like 15-20 minutes having a quick chat to see how you can then go and use that. But go and figure your business story type out. And if you've got a couple folks on your leadership team, we can then, in the next steps, we can integrate multiple people's perspectives. But at the very least, think about what your perspective on the company is when you answer the questions. Super quick, super easy, 14 questions, 10 minutes. Nothing about storytelling in the questions. So you don't have to worry about that. It's all about your business. It's about the challenges, the desires, the difficulties that you have in your business. And it's through that we then triangulate and recommend to you that this is what your story type is. And that may change over time. For Go Narrative, the past year, we actually went through several of them. I can share that when we meet. But yours, at any given time, what story should you be telling? Figure out your story type, and come back in 6 months and do the test again and see if your type has shifted as well. That's another beauty about knowing your story type, and about the tool is that you can come back and do those kind of refreshes. So super exciting, right? And the next, I mentioned next steps, by the way. If we end up going to the next steps, we have this. So this gives you a sense for, we have a 6-week program called Story Accelerator, and you not only get some coaching and some help with you and a couple other of your leadership team, you also get 2 deliverables. You get story guide, which will show your type, dominant and supporting, world of change, which gives you kind of a narrative connection, your fingerprint, your unique story fingerprint, and it is unique, your story hook, which is your story distilled into just a couple paragraphs, and your purpose as well. I'm a Y certified coach, so we bake that into the process. And you also get the 1-page tactical narrative. And so after that 6 weeks, you level up your storytelling game. You've got these assets to work with your whole team, partners, and all that good stuff as well. So there we go. You've got it. The next steps are go and download I would actually do the story type first and then go and download the playbook, but go do those 2 things and you will be cooking on gas before you know it, telling clearer, more impactful business stories. And I can't wait to hear how you get on. So let me know, drop me an email, message on LinkedIn, whatever it happens to be, and let's connect. And I can't wait to hear what your story is and how you apply your story type to the story that you're telling. So thank you so much for stopping by today, and I can't wait to chat with you again.